Hi, I'm Jacob Gallucci, and right now I'd like to present the track list for Rock and Roll Roots Volumes 35 and 36. And as of now, I've presented the track list for Volumes 27 to 34, and I have 8 more albums to present. And this month I'm doing Volumes 35 and 36. And right now I'll start with Volume 35. Track number 1 is The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy, and this song's from 1976. And this is a classic song, it really is, and Thin Lizzy was a really good band. They're very underrated, but sadly this was their only top 40 hit in the US, and that's sad to me, because they were really good. Track number 2 is I Melt With You by Modern English, and this song's from 1982, and in my opinion, this is one of the better songs from the early 80s. It's really good. It's been in a lot of TV shows, movies, and commercials, and The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy has been in a lot of TV shows, movies, and commercials as well. And believe it or not, I Melt With You actually never made the top 40. You hear it a lot on the radio, but it never actually made the top 40, which is surprising. Track number 3 is Tobacco Road by the Blues Magoos, and this song's from 1966. And the Blues Magoos, their one and only top 40 hit, We Ain't Got Nothing Yet, was actually on an earlier Rock and Roll Roots album. It was on a Bob Stroud Rock and Roll Roots album many years ago, I believe Volume 8. And they were a good band. They're one of the better psychedelic rock, garage rock bands from the 60s, and their version of Tobacco Road is from the same album as We Ain't Got Nothing Yet. The album's called Psychedelic Lollipop, which is one of the better garage rock / psychedelic rock albums of the era. And their version of Tobacco Road's really good. It's not as good as the one by the Nashville Teens, which their version was actually on an earlier Rock and Roll Roots album of mine. And the Blues Magoos version's probably the second best version of that song. It's one of the better ones for sure, absolutely. The fourth song is Don't Forget About, no, let me try this again. The fourth song is Don't Forget About Me by The American Breed, and this song's from 1967. And The American Breed, they were a local group from the Chicago area. Their biggest hit was Bend Me, Shape Me, and this song, it was a minor hit. It didn't actually make the Billboard Hot 100. It just missed the top 100, and it's a good song, though. It's not as good as Bend Me, Shape Me, but it's not bad, and believe it or not, this song was actually written by Jerry Goffin and Carole King. Yeah, it's true. The fifth song is Don't Try to Lay No Boogie Woogie on the King of Rock and Roll by Crow, and this song's from 1971. And Crow was a good band. Two of their earlier songs, two of their other songs were on Bob Stroud Rock and Roll Roots albums many years ago. Cottage Cheese was on Volume 1, and Evil Woman, Don't Play Your Games With Me was on Volume 3. And This song was actually, Don't Try to Lay No Boogie Woogie on the King of Rock and Roll was actually their second biggest hit behind Evil Woman, Don't Play Your Games With Me. Evil Woman was their only song that actually made the top 40, and surprisingly that song was covered by Black Sabbath. Yeah, Black Sabbath. Their version's good, but I think Crow did it better, and Don't Try to Lay No Boogie Woogie on the King of Rock and Roll was later covered by Long John Baldry, and his version was on a Stroud album, Volume 4. And Crow's version's good, but I think Long John Baldry did it better. And neither artist actually wrote the song, actually, no. It's a good song, though, it really is. Track number 6 is Those Were the Days by Mary Hopkin, and this song's from 1968. And this is a pretty song, it really is. It's based on a Russian folk song, and this is her biggest hit in the U.S. Her second biggest hit, Goodbye, which was actually written by Paul McCartney, is on my next album, Volume 36. And I think she's one of the most beautiful women in pop music / rock music history. She was gorgeous. Mary Hopkins, she was so pretty. She really was. The seventh song is All the Young Dudes by Matva Hoople, and this song's from 1972. And this is their only U.S. top 40 hit, and it's a great song, it really is. David Bowie actually wrote it. The group was on the verge of breaking up, and David Bowie was going to help them. He was going to write a song for them. Initially, he offered them Suffragette City, but they turned it down, and then instead he gave them All the Young Dudes, and it was their biggest hit, actually. And they're underrated, they really are. They were a good band, they really were. And this song the melody was ripped off years later by Vitamin C, the song Graduation. It's played at every, high school graduation, 8th grade and high school graduation, you know that song. As we go on, we remember, that song. Not that part of the song. That part of the song doesn't rip off All the Young Dudes, but, the verses do. It sounds just like All the Young Dudes, it really does. Alright, track number 8 is Mighty Joe by Shocking Blue, and this song is from 1969. And Shocking Blue, they were actually from the Netherlands. Their biggest hit was Venus, and that was their only U.S. top 40 hit. And Mighty Joe just missed the top 40, which is a shame because it's a good song. It's really a good underrated song. It's not as good as Venus, but it's a solid song, it really is. And their lead singer, Mariska Veers, was beautiful too. She was really pretty as well. Okay, track number 9 is I Call Your Name by the Buckinghams, and this song's from 1967. And the Buckinghams are a Chicago area band from that era, and this was a minor hit for them nationally. Locally it did well, though, and this is a cover of the Beatles song. The Beatles version is still the definitive one, and the Mamas and the Papas actually have a really good cover of this song, too. It's on their debut album, If You Can Believe Your Eyes and Ears. That version of I Call Your Name is I think that's the best cover of it. This cover is really good though too. I think the Buckinghams do a good job with it. Okay, track number 10 is the 59th Street Bridge song Feelin' Groovy by Harper's Bazaar. And this song's from 1967, and this is a cover of the Simon & Garfunkel song. Their version, the Simon & Garfunkel version, is from their 1966 album, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. I like their version, but I think Harper's Bazaar did it better. I really do. The Simon & Garfunkel version sounds like a demo. The Harper's Bazaar version sounds complete. The one by Simon & Garfunkel is not even 2 minutes long. It's a little less than 2 minutes long. The one by Harper's Bazaar is 2 minutes and 38 seconds long, and this was their only really big hit. They had another song that made the top 40, but it barely made the top 40. Their version of the 59th Street Bridge song Feelin' Groovy was their only top 40 hit. It was their only big hit, I should say. It was their only big hit. And one of the members of the band, Ted Templeman, became a producer for Warner Brothers, and he produced a lot of notable artists in the 70s and 80s, including, the Doobie Brothers, Van Morrison, Montrose, and Van Halen, just to name a few. Okay, track number 11 is Midnight Rider by Greg Allman, and this song's from 1973, and this song was originally a song by the Allman Brothers Band from 1970. It was on their Idlewild South album, and I think the version by Greg Allman's better. The solo version by Allman's better. It's slower, and it's more soulful. It's like Blue-Eyed Soul almost. It's still Southern rock, but it has like a Blue-Eyed Soul feel to it. It really does. The original version by the Allman Brothers Band is faster, and it has more of a country rock, Southern rock kind of sound. I actually knew this version of Midnight Rider before I knew the one by the Allman Brothers Band. I did, I swear to God. Both versions are good, but I think the solo version's even better. I really do. And this was his only top 40 hit as a solo artist. It's true. It was, yeah. And the final track is You Got Me Hummin' by Cold Blood. And this song's from 1969, and it's a really good cover of a kind of obscure Sam and Dave song, and the lead vocalist of the song, her name is, I believe it's Lydia Pence. I think it's Lydia Pence. She has a really good voice. She sounds kind of like Janis Joplin and Aretha Franklin. She has like this blue-eyed soul voice, and it's her. She has one of the most underrated voices for any female rock singer I've ever heard. She was really good. The band still performs. She's actually the only original member of the band remaining. All the others have either, I think, died or, have left the group. She's the only original member left. She has a really good voice, though. She does. Lydia Pence is her name, I believe. And, yeah, and, anyway, okay. Here's volume 36. Okay, track number 1 on volume 36 is Bang a Gong, Get It On by T-Rex. And this song's from 1971. And they were a really good band, T-Rex. They're very underrated, and sadly, this was their only U.S. top 40 hit. They had a bunch of hits in the UK, but this was their only top 40 hit in the U.S., which is sad because they were really good. It's definitely one of the best glam rock songs of all time. Okay, track number 2 is The Mighty Quinn, Quinn the Eskimo by Manfred Mann, and this song's from 1968. And this was originally a Bob Dylan song. And this version by Manfred Mann, I think it's better than Dylan's, actually. It's really good. The lead vocalist is Michael Dabo. Michael Dabo, he was a British rock musician then, and he was the lead singer of Manfred Mann at the time, I believe. And he's the father of Olivia Dabo, the actress. Her most famous role was as the older sister Karen on The Wonder Years. And she's British. She's actually British. She played an American on that show, but she's British in real life. I didn't know that until years later, actually. I was shocked that she was actually British. She did a really convincing American accent on The Wonder Years. She's beautiful, too. She's a good actress, and she's pretty as well. And, anyway, okay, track number 3 is Making Every Minute Count by Spanky and Our Gang. And this song's from 1967. And they're a local group from the Chicago area. They're kind of like the Mamas and the Papas. They have like a sunshine pop kind of sound, And this was a hit. It made the top 40. It wasn't as big of a hit as Lazy Day, Sunday Will Never Be the Same, and Like to Get to Know You, but it made the top 40. It's not a bad song. Track number 4 is Just Between You and Me by April Wine, and this song's from 1981. And they're a Canadian band, and this was their biggest top 40 hit in the U.S., and the video for the song was actually one of the first videos that was played on MTV back in 1981. It's true. It's a pretty song, it really is. Their other top 40 hits in the US were on earlier rock and roll roots albums of mine, You Could Have Been a Lady and Roller. And, okay. Track number 5 is Laugh, Laugh by the Beau Brummels, and this song's from 1965. And this song is a garage rock classic. The Beau Brummels were actually American. They were from San Francisco, and this was one of their 2 big hits. The other was Just a Little. Just a Little is on one of my later rock and roll roots albums, and both songs were on their debut album, Introducing the Beau Brummels, and it's from 1965, and believe it or not, Sly Stone produced that album. Yes, Sly Stone. From Sly and the Family Stone. Yeah, he produced that album. That's crazy. It's a good album. It really is. Okay, track number 6 is Walkin' the Wild Side by Lou Reed, and this song's from 1972, and this is his only top 40 hit in the U.S., either as a solo artist or with the Velvet Underground. This was his only top 40 hit. That's sad, because he's a legend. Lou Reed was amazing. He really was. And this is from his legendary album Transformer. Okay, track number 7 is Fantasy by Aldo Nova, and this song's from 1982. And Aldo Nova is a Canadian artist, and this was his only U.S. top 40 hit, and it's not a bad song. It's a good rocker. Okay, track number 8 is Dreadlock Holiday by 10cc, and this song's from 1978, and it's a reggae song. They're a white group doing reggae, not unlike the Police. It's really good. It's a good song. It's their third most famous song behind I'm Not in Love and The Things We Do for Love. And those 2 songs were on earlier rock and roll roots albums of mine. And Dreadlock Holiday is a good song. It's not as good as those 2, but it's a classic too. It's a good song. Track number 9 is One Track Mind by the Knickerbockers, and this song's from 1966, and this was their second biggest hit behind Lies. Lies was on an earlier Rock and Roll Roots album of mine, and One Track Mind just missed the top 40. Lies was their only top 40 hit, and One Track Mind was the follow-up. It was the follow-up to Lies, and it just missed the top 40, which is a shame because it's a good song. It's not as good as Lies, but it's good too. It's a solid song. Track number 10 is Cadillac by the New Colony 6, and this song's from 1966, and they're a local group. They were from the Chicago area, and they were around from the mid 60s until about the early to mid 70s. Nationally, this song didn't do much, but locally it was a hit. And Cadillac was originally by Bo Diddley. It's a cover of a Bo Diddley song. Bo Diddley's original is still the definitive one, but the New Colony 6 do a good job with it. I would say it's a good cover. Track number 11 is Starr by Stealers Wheel, and this song's from 1974. And this is their second biggest hit behind Stuck in the Middle with You. Stuck in the Middle with You was on an earlier Rock and Roll Roots album of mine. Starr made the top 40 as well. It's a good song, it really is. It's not as good as Stuck in the Middle with You, but it's actually a pretty good song. I like Starr a lot. It's definitely an underrated gem. Okay, the 12th and final track is Goodbye by Mary Hopkin, and this song's from 1969. And this is her second biggest hit in the US behind Those Were the Days. Those Were the Days was on volume 35, and Goodbye is on volume 36, and Paul McCartney actually wrote this song. He did. He wrote it, and his demo actually exists. It's really good. His demo is really good, but I think Mary Hopkin did it better. And it's a good song. It's not as good as Those Were the Days, but Goodbye is a solid song too. And alright, those were volumes 35 and 36 of Rock and Roll Roots. And anyway, I'll be back next month with 2 new videos. And until then, take care.